know, there's actually a difference of opinion. Some scholars actually say it's Isaac as well.
Shall we have a look at it? Shall we pull it out and have a look?
Oh, you know what? I don't know.
Bro, I mean, the thing is, man, like, you've accepted this religion as the truth. Is the sound okay, bro?
Yep.
Right. You've accepted this religion as the truth.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's worthy of you to consider the criticisms of Islam to see if they might have merit. You and I both know that if the Quran has contradictions within it, that therefore it's not from Allah. Yeah? And I want to show you a very obvious contradiction.
What between
you don't need to. Yeah, you don't need to be. You don't need to have some degree in Islamic theology. You just need to have a reasonable mind, and I know you have a reasonable mind.
Sure, but it's like if I now come to you and say, let's talk about.
I would take it.
A new perspective from Paul.
Yeah, I would talk about it.
But then, I've tried to talk to people about this before, Christians, and they didn't know about it. So,
well, I'll tell you what. How about I give you this deal? You talk to me about what I want to talk about, and then I'll talk to you about that.
Sure, but it's like you've prepared. You have notes and everything. You
literally just presented a topic to me that I haven't prepared for. So it is fair.
I rather talk about something that I actually know stuff about.
Well, like I said, you don't need to have a massively intelligent thing. You know, you're like degrees or qualifications.
No, it's not about degrees, but it's at least the topic that I've touched upon it, and because there might also be that this is the thing, the frustration I had sometimes, not with you personally, but myself.
Yeah.
I talked to you about something. For example, we had a conversation about ambiguity in the Quran, and you kept asking me, what is ambiguity? What does that mean?
Yes.
How do we define these verses? And it was
words.
the words, right?
But they're not the sounds.
No, but there was two things which I didn't pick up. One was that there's clear verses and there's ambiguous verses. What you thought was that ambiguous here means unclear. But ambiguous means what it means.
Yeah.
The answer I kept saying to you is ambiguous verses. It's in the word itself.
Yeah.
Ambiguous means many ways of understanding it.
Yeah.
And that's what creates meaning, because your understanding of I'm just recapping, because your understanding of the verse was that it means if there's clear verses and there's ambiguous verses, those ambiguous verses must be unclear. However, that's not what it means. Ambiguous here means generating loads of meaning. You know, that's what ambiguity means.
Now, if I remember that conversation correctly, what I was actually pointing out is that not everything in the Quran is a word. That there are some sounds in the Quran that have no meaning. Because a word is that which communicates meaning. And Muslims affirm and deny that Allah has hands, they affirm, but we don't know what those are, which is a logical and rational contradiction. You know, you say things like, Allah is above his throne, the lowest heaven is below his throne, Allah descends into the lowest heaven, but Allah doesn't move. That's a contradiction.
It's a linguistic contradiction.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, a linguistic contradiction.
It is a linguistic contradiction.
But if we talk about like theology and all these other things, then obviously we know, even in Christianity and in Judaism, that there are certain devices that they use to understand certain things like that. You know?
Yeah.
But the point I was trying to make, when I had the conversation with you the first time, I felt really stupid afterwards, because I was like, I could have said this and I could have said, and I remembered this and I remembered that. And that's the nature of the conversation we're having with you. You have excellent criticism and good questions that you're asking, but I feel ambushed sometimes, and I don't know how to answer everything.
Well, what I would love, and one of the reasons why I've come to talk to you, is because you strike me as one of those sincere Muslims that I know exists. You're not like Ali Dawah, you're not like Mansour, you're not like Shamsi, you're not like the guy I've just debated and he ran away. Like, you can have a conversation.
But don't you think it's because you have some history with them, though?
It's because I've beat every single one of them for the last 2 years, and they're sick of getting their arse worked. And that's why they run. Because I expose them constantly, like I just did, just now. But like I say, I want to have an intelligent, sincere conversation with you that I think would give you good reasons to leave Islam. Because you believe that this book can't have a contradiction.
Do I believe that?
Yes.
I think.
Do you want me to show you where the Quran says?
Well, I mean, go ahead. Go ahead. You can try.
Okay. So the Quran. Let me find it. Bear with us 1 second. Well, I'll quote the verse and you tell me if you recognize it. If this were from any other than Allah, they would find many contradictions therein. Do you recognize that verse?
Yeah.
Right. Do you agree that's a Quranic verse? I'm not.
Yeah.
Right. So the Quran affirms, which means you have to affirm, that the Quran is free from contradiction.
Yeah, there would be many contradictions.
Right. So, if I can find contradictions in the Quran, I've met the Quranic challenge to demonstrate the Quran is not from Allah. Agreed?
Yeah, I mean, but then where does...
And notice there's no trick questions here. These are just logical questions.
It's very... But where does like things like hermeneutics come in there? Right? Just the fact of like looking at something and then based upon your own engine and your own like phenomenological experience, you look at a verse and then it may be a contradiction to you. Hence why the verse has many contradictions. The Quran doesn't say actually they would find no contradiction whatsoever.
Does that mean we could possibly find one or two?
I think maybe it's to do, and this is why I'm so apprehensive about these conversations, because now we just open up a whole new chapter, which I haven't looked into. Like, if you want to talk about slavery or anything that I really have looked into, I can. But this stuff, I vaguely know about it, and I can't give you the answers to it.
But but I don't think you need special learning.
What does many mean? Why does the verse say? Why does this verse not say you will find no contradiction? Why does it translate as many contradictions?
Because it would be more than two.
Okay.
Yeah. And we found loads. We found many.
No, but why?
We've demonstrated many.
Why would?
And I've got another one here for you.
Sure, I know. We will get into
it. Okay.
But I'm saying if this book says this book is from God, right?
Yeah.
Why would it then with the same breath say, well, you would find many contradictions? Meaning, like, what is there a possibility that there are contradictions?
So I think the sense of that verse, the sense of that passage, which whilst I haven't bothered to find it yet, we both acknowledge that it's there.
Yeah. I remember.
It's essentially affirming, it's offering a proof that this book is from Allah, because it's saying you're not going to find, I actually think what it means is you're not going to find any contradictions in the Quran. And I think in my experience from talking to hundreds of Muslims, that actually that's exactly how Muslims interpret it, that you can't find any contradictions in the Quran. So many is just saying you're not going to find one, I think. I think, and my experience of talking to Muslims affirms that, because that's how they've understood that verse.
Yeah, I don't believe there are any contradictions, but I'm just saying this.
Exactly, so you would now be amongst the hundreds of other Muslims that have affirmed the idea that there are no contradictions in the Quran.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if I can find one, and I have found many, but if I can find one, you have a good reason to leave Islam.
It depends, because
as a rational human being.
Because then your contradiction might have somewhere a reconciliation I don't know about.
Great, so you can always look into that.
Yeah.
But go through with me what we're reading.
Okay, cool.
Okay? So in Surah 57, reading from Ayah 104, we'll do it systematically and we'll go through what it says. It says, this is do you know the story, by the way? It's the story of Abraham.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So he says, we called out to him, O Abraham. Who's the we here? Who's the we?
God, right?
Allah. But yet here you are, you've walked all the way from over there to come and listen to me.
That's what I'm saying, everybody else is boring, you're more excited than everybody else.
Oh, sorry, I heard that totally. I heard that totally the wrong way around. I'm so sorry, thank you. Right, then it goes, thou hast already fulfilled the vision. Thus indeed do we reward those who do right. Who's the we here?
We? Allah.
Allah, right, brilliant. For this was obviously a trial, and we ransomed him with a momentous sacrifice. Who's the we here?
Allah, I guess.
Allah, yeah.
Oh,
it was the we here, it was the we here, and it's the we here.
Yeah.
And we. And we left this blessing for him among the generations to come in later times. Who's the we here?
Allah again.
Allah again. Peace and salutations to Abraham. Thus indeed do we reward those who do right.
Yes,
Who's
Allah,
the we
Allah
here?
again, Allah.
Right, great. So we established the one that says we is Allah. Right? Now, what is a ransom?
A ransom means when you
Think about a kidnapper.
you have a kidnapper and he requires or demands. It's a better word.
Yeah.
Money or conditions.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a ransom. And I agree, that is exactly what a ransom is. You see, you don't need any special knowledge for this, you just need to be able to think logically.
Sure.
Right. Who is Allah ransoming to here? And who is he sacrificing to? It says, and we ransomed him with a momentous sacrifice. Who is he doing that to?
Is he talking about Isaac?
He's talking, well, we say Isaac, you say Ishmael.
Ishmael.
But at the moment, that's not the issue. Let's just, for the sake of this argument, let's both say it's Ishmael. Just for this argument, so we don't get sidetracked.
Yeah.
Who is Allah offering a ransom to in this passage?
Abraham.
So Allah is committing idolatry?
No, why?
So what does Allah owe to Abraham?
No, but the story goes, if I remember, the story goes that Abraham is asked to sacrifice his son.
To who?
To Allah.
Right.
I don't know if it's to Allah. I know it's definitely a sacrifice that God demands of him.
Would it be to anyone other than Allah? Would Allah ask Abraham to sacrifice to any other than Allah?
No, he wouldn't. But I don't know if it was to. But it was. I know that something was demanded of Abraham.
It was a dream.
Huh?
It wasn't asked, it was a dream.
In a dream. Yeah. True.
So he didn't do it. He never took his child to the hill.
No, he did.
There we go.
The action happened.
Yes.
So in the dream, Abraham kept seeing that, and then he consulted with his son, and then his son told him, if you've been told by your Lord, then you have to obey.
So my question is, now we both agree that a ransom is when a third party requires something of you and you pay the ransom for someone else. Yeah? That's what a ransom is. My question is, who is Allah ransoming to in this passage?
So basically, from what I understand, the story goes then that Abraham, just when he's about to do the act, the animal appears.
Yes.
That was the ransom.
That was the sacrifice, yes. That was the ransom. You're totally right.
Yes, so God replaced.
And I agree. Yeah. I'm not disputing that. We've got the same story in Genesis. We believe in exactly the same thing. But my question is, again, who is the ransom to? What is a ransom again? Tell me what a ransom is again.
So what, like I said, ransom means, if you have a hostage or something. Yeah. And it's
a payment.
Yeah, a payment. Yeah.
So it's a payment from party A to party B for some reason. Yeah. Right? So for some reason, you pay party B because of X. Whatever X is, we can fill X with anything. Right? Party A pays party B. The Quran is saying that Allah ransoms, for the sake of argument, Ishmael. Who possibly has something over Allah that Allah needs to ransom them from? Who's party B?
I don't know. What's the Arabic term? Can someone check?
Can I read it?
Yes, of course.
The word used of ransom, maybe not that.
Yeah, it might not be a good translation.
Okay, it's translated as.
Arabic?
Yeah, sure.
Which one?
Here, this passage. This is the Arabic.
107?
Yeah. Is the word ransom there?
I don't think it's a ransom. It's you are given a replacement.
A replacement, more.
Of
Okay.
What's the word anyway?
And what's gentlemen, what is the express belief that can be backed up in the Quran or
that's what we do every year, right? We do the sacrifice.
That is definitely Allah that appeared to Abraham.
Sorry, no offense. No, with the greatest respect, I want to prosecute my argument, and I don't want to get sidetracked.
I mean, you're asking a lot. Why don't you just make your point?
Right, I am. Thank you. So, in terms of this word, now the reason why I'm going to reject your ad hoc translation, the one that you've just given this moment.
Not given ad hoc, I understood.
Listen. Abdullah Yusuf Ali translated this. Abdullah Yusuf Ali works at a university in Saudi Arabia. He's a Saudi citizen. He is an Arab, and he was commissioned to do this translation. So I'm going to stick with this translation, not yours. What does it say in your translation?
It says ransom as well.
And there we have an independent secondary translation that also chooses the word ransom.
But then,
Wait.
So on a majority vote of 2 to 1, we should stick with the word ransom.
yeah, and then can I read the bookmark where it says that?
Yeah, go on.
For ransom. So that verse in particular says, "We ransomed him with a great sacrifice."
We ransomed him.
Yeah, and then it says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a huge ram to be sacrificed to place of
Yes.
Ishmael.
Right. So
replace
the word no.
At the end is
No. The word ransomed, as you have already identified and have I already identified, is between party A and party B. But let's do it another way, because you
Why
see.
would it be difficult if we say replacement? Would that change your
Well,
argument?
what I'm saying is that isn't the Quranic word. The Quranic word is ransomed, and we've got a 2 to 1 majority in terms of which translation we should follow. That the word should be ransomed. If we pull up the Quranic corpus and look through all the different translators, I bet you the word ransomed is in the majority.
Sure.
Do you know why? Because I've already checked.
Good.
No, it's not.
I just want to hear the point he's making.
Right.
But the thing is that he didn't mention.
So-
Rather
so-
than argue
what
about
we say.
semantics.
So my
No, but
point
it's very
is.
important.
No.
It is important.
Please do.
You're absolutely
I
right.
want to hear what-
So my point is, so I'm gonna come to a conclusion now.
Sure.
Okay? The Quran is using language unbefitting of Allah, because the word ransomed is clearly a transaction between 2 parties, and it is absolutely Muslims criticize Christianity because we say that the Son of the Father ransomed us through his atoning death. And you attack that and you say, why did God die to save us from God? But here we have an example where Allah is making a transaction that is proper to 2 parties, but it obviously can only be to himself. But that is logically irrational because Allah is one person. So there is a logical contradiction that a person feels that he needs to ransom something to himself.
But you see,
Because in authority, because he's Al-Maliki, he is not beholden to himself, he simply wills and it is.
You know, Bob. You know what I've noticed with your argumentation, is that a lot of your argumentation lies.
Let me listen to his reply.
Lies onto depends a lot on linguistic understanding. So you would use a term like ransom.
Yeah. No, that's the Quran's term.
I know. I mean, as in you would highlight the word ransom.
Yeah.
And then you would run through it, through what ransom means in the English language, and you trying to, we have to, I understand, but you would do that, and then your argumentation rests upon linguistic, and then you bring theology into it.
Yes.
So, these things sometimes, because theologically speaking, oxum razor, if I was to make it the most simplistic way, explain this to my child, I would say to my child, God replaced Ismail or Isaac, depending on what you believe, with the ram.
Right.
That's literally what this story was all about.
Let's progress the argument further. Who's the sacrifice to?
What was the dream about?
Okay, this is why I kept saying what I was saying, right?
Yeah.
Because what we got to remember is I don't believe if anyone has a higher understanding of Islam better than my own, which is probably quite a lot in the park.
I go to them all, they all run away.
Is that do we believe that just because Abraham had a dream that it was definitely from Allah that the dream came from?
No, but we believe it was from Allah.
No, that's what he believed. What I'm saying is there a guarantee that it was
No,
definitely him?
no.
Because why would God then
No, but Islamic theology, according to Islamic theology, the message that Abraham received was from God. We believe that. There's no question whatsoever about it.
He's right.
There's no question whatsoever about
Yeah.
it.
So my point to you is this. One person.
Sorry, Bob. One second. Hold on. What Abraham got a title. What was his title?
Khalilullah,
Right, and what does it mean in English?
friend of
Yeah.
God.
Did he ever hear the voice of Allah?
Oh man, you open up some.
No, did
No,
it?
no,
Did you
bro,
ever
bro,
hear the
bro.
voice of Allah?
Can I ask?
Because the only reason
sorry.
why I ask is if he was able to talk with Allah, why did Allah have to go to him
Oh
with a
man,
drink?
Yeah,
that's
it's a great question, but it's a great question, and your imams don't have answers. But let me prosecute my argument, because
God communicates to.
No, please.
God communicates to his messengers in a different way. We
So-
know that the Prophet
so let me
would get
prosecute my
revelation
answer.
through dreams. He would get revelation through ringing. He would get revelation through Gabriel.
So let me
There's
no,
many
guys.
channels.
sorry, yeah,
Thank you very much.
Just to answer
So
what
let's
you were
go.
saying.
The reason why this is a rational contradiction, guys, is because can you think of an example where one person ransoms something to himself? It's illogical. It's irrational.
Why is
Allah
it-
is
It
one
depends,
person.
because the way
One
we
second.
understand the story-
Allah is one
I
person.
was rhetorical. It wasn't an actual question.
So Allah is one person. Now I'm going to be sparing. I'm going to be charitable. I'm not going to say that Allah is committing idolatry, that he's asking Abraham to ransom to some other third party. The only person that could possibly receive that ransom and sacrifice is Allah himself. But the idea of putting on God, who is a singular person in your religion, the idea of a ransom is a rational, logical contradiction, because one Maliki, the king, the all-sovereign, does not require ransoms for a thing.
No,
He
but of
simply
course, of course,
says,
it's-
doing it is.
No, but
but
no,
the
no,
Quran,
no.
one second, the Quran is describing a ransom. Now, let me prosecute the argument a little further. Muslims attack Christian belief that Jesus Christ is our ransom. But in the Christian faith it makes sense, because the Son is ransoming to the Father. So one person is ransoming to another person. So when you criticize Christianity and say, how can God ransom himself? Why does God need to ransom someone through his Son? He's God, he can just declare your sins forgiven. Well, I now just flip that argument back on you and I say, why does Allah require a ransom for Abraham's son?
By the way, that's a very bad. It's a very bad argument from the Muslims if they say something like
Which
that.
they do all the time, including Ali Dawah,
Yeah,
including Mansour, including Shamsi. Well, Shamsi loves that argument.
I don't.
Sorry, the only point I would make on
Yeah.
it is that one of the faiths believes that we're here to be tested,
Yes.
right? And therefore, if we are going to be in agreement,
Yes.
that Allah did command this ransom, if you like, using the words that we've seen translated.
Yeah.
Yeah. That He was testing Abraham's faith.
Yes.
To execute His orders.
Yes.
Yeah. And to show that He is faithful and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas, if Jesus is God, how are you going to compare a ransom to the crucifixion?
Yeah.
For the job that he was sent for, in your opinion,
Yeah.
and say that that was a ransom.
Yeah.
Clearly, it was more of a sacrifice. Therefore, it was kind of like a suicide.
Yeah. So let me.
And he chose it.
So let me.
There was no test.
So let me address this point. Let me address this point. But I just want to point out that your argument doesn't get the Quran out of the bind that I've demonstrated. All it does is shift the discussion, and I'm happy to engage in that discussion. I'm
Yeah,
not
can
going to
we-
run
can
for
we
it.
stay-
Yeah.
can
But
you
what I'm
answer
saying
both?
is, yeah, I'm going to do both. But all I'm saying is, at this moment in time, there has been no defence of the fact that a singular person has required a ransom to himself for no apparent reason.
No, but-
Right. But let me press on with what he said.
Sorry, but sorry, you confused.
Let me press on with what he said.
Clarify. The ransom is to himself.
Well, of course, it can't be to anyone else, because that would make Allah an idolater.
That's
So
it.
no.
That's
I
it.
mean, like.
Well, it can't be to anyone
I mean,
else.
like,
Who else
in
could it
the
be
sense
to?
of, if I want you to do something,
Yeah.
I say to you,
Yes.
if you don't do this, well,
Yes.
go and do this for me.
Yes.
type thing.
Yes.
How am I ransoming?
The night of faith. Yeah, Kierkegaard talks about this and uses Abraham. He says Abraham is an archetypical person
Yes.
because he's the knight of faith, because he goes against that which he loves the most, which is his son, and he doesn't want to kill his son.
Yeah.
But he's in this predicament because he is a man of God and because he's a prophet. He must follow commandment. It's not like he can or he has choice in it. Therefore, he's at the mercy of God. So,
Well, that's the beauty. He doesn't
Right.
have choice.
The
So-
thing is that gentleman doesn't want to acknowledge the replacement. He does not want to acknowledge that.
No.
In so many ways,
It
it's not
literally
necessarily
says ransom, guys. You're trying to. What the reason? This is
Explain to
the.
you in the
the
book.
king-
No,
Hold on.
sorry.
Hold on.
Sorry,
The
sorry,
thing I wanna
hold
hear
on, guys.
is why is he so caught up on the word ransom?
Guys, bear with
Yeah,
us.
because
One
he won't
second.
stick to
But
that.
that's
One second.
methodology.
One second.
It's
Who-
linguistic,
who- agenda.
the theological concept. So that's why it's always tricky to do.
Guys. guys, sorry, I'm gonna
Sure.
press into what I'm saying,
Sure.
right? Because you're right. Kierkegaard is right. Abraham is an archetype. He is an archetype of Jesus Christ. In this instance, Abraham is the judgment of God. Ishmael, for us it's Isaac, but I just don't want to get sidetracked, so I'm going to say Ishmael.
You know that some Muslims believe it's Isaac.
Ishmael, it represents humanity, and the lamb that is sacrificed represents Christ. But the transaction that occurs in Christianity, the ransom that occurs in Christianity, is between two persons. Jesus Christ is giving his own life in sacrifice to ransom our lives to the glory of God the Father. So you've got party A, party B, so no rational contradiction. But if you assert, as the Quran does, that the word is ransom, which it is, a ransom, as we've already established, is two parties making a transaction. But in Islam, there's only one party, which means that there is no need for the ransom. Allah could have just gone like this: Abraham, you've brought Ishmael this far, I see you're going to kill him, stop. And that is all that is required. Because there is no need for a ransom. Because Allah is Al-Maliki, and there's only him involved in this situation.
What do you mean by Al-Maliki?
No, but there
What's
is.
Al-Maliki?
What I would say
Why
to that
use
as
an
well,
Al-Maliki
right,
word?
is
I
that
don't
who
Malik.
Why? This is a word I don't understand.
One of the attributes, you know.
No, but
Sorry,
Daoud.
the one thing I'd say on it
No, it's not.
is that how would Abraham feel when he receives revelation like this and says he has to kill his son? And all? How did he take
No,
it?
he was struggling with
Did he
it.
feel like he was
struggling.
being tested in the sense of this ransom?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Would the language he would have used been ransom as well? Because
No,
he
that's
felt
the
like he'd been
language
done
that the
something.
Quran uses.
No, but there is a.
So that's
point.
Allah's language, and
there
that's
is-
not befitting of
you're-
Allah.
You're right in that there seems to be, in the primordial sense,
Yep.
a need for sacrifice in religion, and we have this in Christianity, we have this with Jewish people, and we have it in Islam as well. That sacrifice still plays a huge role.
Yeah.
That and that's why ransom may have been one of the reasons was used, because there was a need for a sacrifice to be made.
But whose need is this?
What do you mean? Who's asking for it?
But because Allah is asking
Yeah.
for a ransom. Allah gives a ransom.
It gives a ransom, you mean?
But the only one that he's giving the ransom to is himself.
yeah, but why is that?
There you go.
difficult? Why is
And
that
that's the
difficult?
contradiction, bro.
No, it's not.
Because think about
When you
what.
say-
No.
sorry, Bob,
You
when you
talked
say
about
contradiction-
need.
Bob, when you say
Allah doesn't
contradiction,
have
are
any
you referring
needs,
to other
which
Muslims?
means that he doesn't need a ransom.
No, but let's do an analysis of the verse. It's
Yes.
it's like reading Shakespeare and then like just being so hung up on the literal, like you. I know you're not a literalist, so why
Yeah.
you're. Neither am I in that sense.
Bob,
right?
sorry, 1 second, David. Bob,
Go
can I
on.
ask you a little question?
Yeah,
When you use the word that it's a contradiction,
which it is.
are you referring to all the Muslims that have stated to you that Jesus being a sacrificial lamb in Christianity is silly, a silly idea?
Yeah.
Are they the contradiction, or are you saying that the Quran is contradicting?
I'm saying,
It's a good
so it's a good question, so I'm going to answer it. So the reason why I've come to you with this argument is because Dai in the park come to Christians and say things like, how can God ransom himself to himself?
Okay.
Right?
Point well made.
Right.
Fair point.
Now,
fair point.
my point to you is,
Fair point.
if you're going to attack Christianity for that argument, then I am
Although
entitled
Yeah.
to take your logic,
Yeah.
attack your Quran using your logic.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's far worse in your religion than it is in mine. Because at least in my religion, when we talk about the ransom sacrifice of Christ, we do have party A and party B. We have party A, the Father. We have party B, the Son. And we have X, humanity. But in this particular passage, and that was all epitomized by Abraham's sacrifice in Genesis. Because because Abraham, he's having his faith tested.
Yeah.
And the test is to sacrifice his son, his only begotten son, and then as a promise, as an archetype to what God Himself was going to do for humanity, a sacrificial lamb was provided, so that Isaac or Ishmael didn't have to die. But in Islam, there is only one person in Allah, which means that when Allah says, I've given you a ransom, there's got to be a party B.
Well,
Right? And that party B doesn't exist.
well, you know what? This might be helpful to you as well. Yeah, when you think about if you think about sacrifice, yeah, sacrifice.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you over these. You're saying.
If you think about sacrifices and God demanding sacrifices in the Quran, there are a couple different stories as well. For example, Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
Right? God demands sacrifice from them. One is successful and the other isn't, and becomes jealous and therefore kills the brother.
Yeah.
Right? And we believe that's the first murder that takes place in human history.
Yeah.
When you think about these things, the meaning always behind it never seems to be the act itself. Actually, the same thing with Abraham. It's not actually the act of doing the sacrifice. That's like, it takes secondary importance. What is the primary importance here is the willingness and the intention behind that very sacrifice. Because one sacrifice, both sacrificed, one is accepted and the other is rejected. You see?
Yeah.
And in a ritualistic sense, when we sacrifice as Muslims, there are very particular things that you have to do. For example, you don't cut your hair, you don't cut your nails, and you do certain things in order for your sacrifice to be accepted. However, the ultimate sacrifice that one takes is by being is being a Muslim. It's by being in submission to that which is greater than you, which is God, and you believe in that too. And I feel like when you read these verses, the broader meaning, like what it's really trying to tell us, how is that going to help me in the 21st century? I don't have to go sacrifice my kids on the altar. It's never going to happen to me. But it's telling us that on the path of God, one must be resilient and put your trust in God whilst doing so, and also have people surrounding you, helping you. In this case, Isaac or Israel.
Can I add to it?
I want to reply. He made. Go on.
During that time, during Abraham time, there was a lot of paganism that sacrificed kids to the gods.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why he's like,
Beautiful.
Coming to his dream that he should do this to please God.
Yeah.
But God told him, no, you don't need to.
So allow me to reply.
To replace that, then you can have this as a way of life from now on. That's what we do with Muslims.
So allow me to reply.
Even pre-Islam.
So allow me to reply. Because here's what I actually think has happened in the Quran. We both know that Muhammad was a traveller. We both know that Muhammad used to hang around with Jews and Christians and other people before his calling to be a prophet. And we both know that Muhammad lived amongst the Jews. Muhammad was clearly exposed to the story of Abraham's sacrifice. But that story that he was exposed to is directly connected to the idea of what then became temple sacrifices in the Jewish faith. It wasn't just an archetype of, it shows that the ancient religion of God, is that God does require sacrifices. And Muhammad picked up that story, but he never understood what that story was really about or what it really means. And he incorporates this story using language that the rest of Quranic theology does not correspond to.
It does.
And that's why we see a rational contradiction. No, I let you finish completely, and I let you finish completely. Let me finish completely. Let me finish completely.
Come on. You haven't.
Right?
Yeah.
So what we've seen is that God requires sacrifice. And the Quran is borrowing that story because God requires a sacrifice to ransom Ishmael. He sacrifices a lamb to ransom Ishmael to himself, which is a dramatic contradiction, but shows that sacrifice and ransom are interlinked. Let me finish. I'm landing. I'm landing. And in the Christian faith, that makes sense. Abraham sacrifices the lamb to save Isaac. In the temple, the Jews sacrifice animals to save Israel. In the new covenant, Christ's sacrifice saves us all. It says in Hebrews chapter 10, "For the law since it has only a shadow of the good things to come, not the very form of things, can never, by the same sacrifices which they offer continually year after year, make perfect those who draw near. Otherwise, would they not have ceased to be offered, but because the worshippers, having once been cleansed, would no longer have consciousness of sins. But those who sacrifice, there is a reminder of sins year by year. For it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. That's the correlation between sacrifice and ransom. Christ is the perfect sacrifice, a necessary sacrifice for our sins. He is that ransom that is owed to the Father because we have insulted the honor of God by the sins we continually commit.
But we have.
Yeah, but that's not taking
I'm sorry,
responsibility.
You don't have a concept of
What
that.
he repeated is the paganism in Arabia, pre-Islam, exactly this is how he said it.
Yeah.
They're trying to refer to the gods
Yeah.
by sacrificing kids. Jesus did that for the gods.
Yeah.
And when Islam or Judaism came trying to correct that, but
Yeah.
it failed. Christianity trying to correct that, it failed.
I wouldn't say
When
it
Islam came
failed.
in,
Bobby was
stopped
using
all
these
that.
words.
So, that's why when we do
It's
this,
just a
we feel
continuation.
the
Yeah,
animals
but
that
it's
we
just-
sacrifice every year.
No, but
it really brings
Because no
or
Muslims
cleanse
believe
the sins that we have committed. So, for example,
Sorry, let me. Yeah, go on.
I'm giving you.
Yeah, go
I'm
on,
a
go on,
native-
go on,
I'm a
go
native
on,
Arabian,
go on,
so
go
I'm
on.
giving you
Go on.
what my ancestors do. By the way, not all Arabia paganism. Some of them follow the Abraham tradition. Not all paganism.
Go on.
Paganism was only in probably Mecca and some other coastal area. So when we do the sacrifice in the past, pre-Islam, was to remove the sin. That's exactly until today. Okay, when Islam came in, emphasizing doing this. So the tribes were doing it, stopped doing it at this moment.
So let me reply to that. Let me reply to that. Are you joining in, bro? Or are you done?
No, yeah, because there's too many people.
Okay. So my point to it is the brother's checked out. He's checked out. Right. But my point to you is, bro, the first thing, you've got this complete misunderstanding that's been given to you by your da'i. Christ, listen, Christ laid down his own life. He laid it down. No one took it from him. He had the power to lay it down and he had the power to raise it up again. This was not that a third party took hold of Christ and then sacrificed him to God, which is what you're accusing the Christian faith of doing. That is not what we believe. That is not what we believe. What we believe is that Christ laid down his own life. So it's more like you're walking across a road, a bus is going to hit you, and then I run out into the road, push you out of the way, and then get hit by the bus myself. Like, I made a choice. No one forced me to do it. That is not what you just described. It's not the idea of human sacrifice. But listen, because it goes on. In Hebrews chapter 10. Therefore, brethren, since we have confidence to enter the holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way which he inaugurated for us through the veil that is his flesh, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a sincere heart, in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled clean from the evil our hearts and bodies. Sorry, I've lost it. Bear with us. It's the wind. Yeah. Let us draw near with a sincere heart, in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. Now, the point is that without that sacrifice that God established in Judaism, without that sacrifice that God established through Abraham, without that sacrifice that God established through Christ, you can't enter into the presence of God because you are not clean from your sins. Furthermore, in response to this sacrifice, we Christians are called to offer our souls and bodies to be a living sacrifice. Your sin, when God created you, what he requires of you is your life. Your sin means that you have turned away from him and you have not given your life. And the payment for that sin, the ransom, the debt that you now owe to God, is a life, your life. But since your own sin stops you from ever giving it completely to God, God himself, through the Son, deals with the debt that you owe him. Now, just ask another logical question. Why would God establish the idea of temple sacrifices in Judaism and then remove it in Islam when you believe it's the same religion preached by all the prophets? Why would he have one system in one religion and then stop it in another religion? That makes no sense.
What do you mean, temple sacrifice?
So, the Jewish law...
He's talking about the animal sacrifices.
So, animal sacrifices...
We do still animal sacrifice.
Is that for your sins?
No, we do sacrifice.
No.
That's fair.
No, but sometimes when we...
I thought it was the same religion, though.
When we do sacrifice, we ask God for forgiveness. I want to do this for my father. We do this for my ancestors.
So when you sacrifice the animal,
Yeah, it's a year.
are your sins being taken away because
No,
you do that
The
sacrifice?
sacrifice you're referring to is literally the story we're talking about. The Isaac story.
Yes.
But there's a mixing,
And that sacrifice is a ransom.
mixing.
Notice the connection in your Quran. Sacrifice is a ransom, and that ransom is being paid to Allah, which makes no sense at all, right? And this is the contradiction. And the reason why it's a contradiction, is because Muhammad was borrowing a story that he didn't understand. That story is connected to the temple sacrifices of Judaism. It was a prefiguration of the temple sacrifices, which is a prefiguration of Christ's sacrifice. God is not an author of confusion. He doesn't create one religion and then radically make it into something else. If God required a ransom sacrifice for Abraham and then a ransom sacrifice in the temple, then he requires a ransom sacrifice still for your sin now.
So what's all right for the argument that you're making? I really want to talk about the ransom bit.
Yeah.
Just for the argument that you're making about God doesn't make one rule for one and then confuse it and then dilute it or whatever all the way up to his.
Yeah.
Then why is it that no Christian or most Christians, I'll rephrase, you may be different. I don't know.
Yeah.
One, have ideology on you in the sense of what I would call a picture of, I'm assuming to be Mary,
Yep.
and a depiction of Jesus on you,
Yep.
which I'd call an idol.
Okay.
Anyway, and do you eat pork? Have you been circumcised? Have you done all of the rules underneath the Jewish? I can't even guarantee that they're all necessarily.
So let me reply to that.
Why is it that you follow St. Paul in that sense?
Yeah.
That he says you don't have to follow
Okay.
these things.
So those are all the lies of the Da'i, but let me explain, because you have been deceived about Christianity by
Let him
the
explain,
Da'i.
let him explain.
You have been deceived.
He did make a fair point.
You have been deceived by the Da'i. They lied to you to convert you to Islam. That isn't what Christianity teaches or believes, but let me explain it to you.
Let them be here. So they
God required a sacrificial ransom for Abraham's son. God required sacrificial sacrifice for the forgiveness of sins of Israel on the Day of Atonement, right? And what happened on the Day of Atonement, what they do is they do this. They take one lamb and they slaughter it and give it as a burnt offering, and then they put their hand on another lamb, right? Lay the sins of that lamb and then send it off into the wilderness, right? That's why it's called a scapegoat, because it escapes death. In other words, it's saying that death leads to life, but it's also showing that it's also another potentate that points towards Jesus, who was both God and divine, human and divine, because the humanity dies, but the divine does not die, it cannot die. Just like one goat dies and another goat doesn't. But together they take away the sins of the world, right? And it's the same process. We've got a continuity in our religion to Judaism and to the religion of Abraham, who practiced animal sacrifice.
Not one Jew would agree.
Right? I don't care what 5th century Jews say.
But they wouldn't agree.
They wouldn't agree with you either. What does that prove?
No, 100%.
Exactly. So it proves nothing. It's a moot point.
We do that they do.
But it's a moot point because they don't agree with you either.
I just feel
But
like.
let me. I'm landing. So the reality is, Jesus Christ himself fulfills the law. He himself abolished aspects of the law in his own lifetime. He declared all foods clean, Because Jesus Christ establishes a new covenant. That new covenant is not the old covenant of Israel, because the old covenant of Israel was for one nation, but the new covenant is for every nation. And so the Old Testament laws particular to Israel are not required for the rest of us.
Sorry, Bob. What would be your reference to the Bible where Jesus has made all food clean?
It's in it says.
Is it Paul?
No. You see, like you're laughing just shows your ignorance.
No. It's a genuine question.
Yeah.
But I do believe that is the answer.
But that's total ignorance on your part.
Okay. Would you
Because
mind? All right.
Jesus.
From a serious and a
Yes.
less rude.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
apologise.
Yeah.
Can you show me the reference where Jesus makes all food clean to eat?
Yeah. Sure. Bear with me 1 second.
Please, the Romans.
Yeah. Right. Again, just Da'i lies. That's just Da'i lies. Da'i lie to Muslims about the Christian faith. Continually.
Hold on, let me- I did
You
ask
lie.
him. I did ask
You
him.
lie continually about the Christian faith. All the time.
His biography says,
All the time. You lie about the Christian faith. The
Not
Da'i
lying.
lie about the Christian
tell us
faith.
the truth.
All the time.
Paul-
I'm many. I'm going
Two
to.
things. We're all men here.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. You understand.
He gets
You
me triggered for
understand.
some reason.
Well, no, I really
Yeah.
want to see
have
where
a
he's got this quote
conversation here.
from.
We're not really.
Right,
He's looking
bear with
for
us.
this, so it's interesting.
JC, just Google us where Christ declares all food clean, please.
Sorry, remind me.
I
Who
want-
was
Right, I'll
Luke?
quote you the verse and then I'll show you the reference once he's found it.
Matthew
So
15:11.
Jesus, Matthew 15:11. Thank you very much. We're just about
Apparently Matthew 15:11.
Think about
Right.
this one.
Matthew 15:11. Bear with us. Yep. So here's what it says. It says Jesus
Sorry,
called.
is this the red letter Bible? Is this?
Yeah, but like
Yeah, because I can see the red. So
Yeah.
this is technically quoting Jesus, right?
it just highlights Jesus's words
Yeah, thank
by
you.
highlighting them red.
Go on, go for it.
Yep. Right. Don't feed into that narrative that Muslims say, "Oh, there's lots of different Bibles." It's just a colour.
I'm not.
just a colour.
I'm just double
You
checking
can
this is
put
supposed
print.
to be verbatim.
Yeah, there's lots of Bibles that print this in black. Still the same words.
Yeah.
Here's what it says. So the question that Jesus was talking about is he's having a debate with the Pharisees about the traditions and the commandments.
Yeah.
Right? And Jesus says this. After Jesus called the crowd to him, he said to them, "Hear and understand, it is not what enters into the mouth that defiles the man,
Okay.
but it is what proceeds out of the mouth, this defiles the man." So when he says that it's not what goes into you that defiles it, he's saying that all food is clean.
That's not what he said.
That is what he said. So why
not what he said.
is food, does food defile you?
I'm trying to give us
In Jewish, no, 1 second. In Jewish law, does pork defile you?
But could he also be talking about alcohol?
No, I want you to answer my question.
Sorry, go
Stop
on.
dodging it.
No, I'm not. I was too
Right.
busy thinking.
Okay.
Same
In
as you.
Jewish
when
law-
when I'm thinking of saying, I can't
In
hear it,
Jewish
so-
law, are there foods that are clean and unclean like pork?
Yes.
Right. If Jesus says that no food defiles you, what is he saying about food?
All right, read it again. Sorry.
Remember the context in which Jesus is speaking. 1 second.
I want because he doesn't use the
Jesus-
word food. It just
Jesus-
says it's not what goes in that defiles a man; it's what comes out.
Yes.
The words that are speaking.
Does food go into you?
Of course it does.
Right. Do you take it through the mouth?
But you also take alcohol in the mouth.
Does it go
and
through
when
the
you
mouth?
Get drunk, you can say a lot of horrible things.
Does it go
that
through the
You
mouth?
would be standing for, wouldn't you? If I could I have the excuse of walking through the park,
Alcohol's a
being drunk,
great,
and saying a lot of
bro,
racist stuff.
Great, bro. Perfect example. Alcohol's a perfect.
Can I?
Bro,
Exactly.
yeah, bro. You've only just made my point for me.
I'll go for it. Go on.
Alcohol. Well, let's use alcohol.
Yeah,
Right? Does alcohol defile a person?
that's a good question.
Does it? Does it? No, answer the question.
Well, no, because
Does it?
we don't believe we should have it. We call it haram.
I know it. Does it? Does it defile you?
That's a good question.
Right. My point to you is Jesus is saying that nothing that goes into the mouth defiles you. So does that nothing include food?
But again, we're talking about Jesus.
I want you to answer my question. I want you to answer my question. It's not a parable, it's a statement.
Okay.
Jesus says nothing that goes into the mouth defiles you. Does food go into the mouth?
Yes.
If it's saying it doesn't defile you, doesn't that mean that it's clean?
No.
Go and explain how not.
Because I still think that he is referring to the language that you use and the excuses that you will have.
Language comes out of the mouth, not
Exactly.
into the mouth.
Yep.
Let's read Jesus' words again, and I want you to address Jesus' words Jesus says, hear and understand, it is not, are you listening?
Yeah.
Not what enters into the mouth that defiles the man. What is not entering into the mouth other than food and water and other liquids?
You need to get the context of that.
Yeah.
Exactly, consumables.
Really-
So if Jesus is saying, that it doesn't defile you, what is he saying about it? No, I want you to. You can laugh, but that's just another da'i lie. You've been
absolutely,
deceived.
Absolutely.
You've just been
find it funny
deceived.
because I think the
You
point
find it
of
funny
this-
because of the da'i jokes.
It's look, listen.
What?
And
Can
da'i
I ask-
culture.
can I ask, do you know Dai is here? Do you know? First time I met you, do you know any Dai?
Yeah, they run away. He's a da'i.
I
He
know
runs
Dai.
away.
First time I met you, I don't know anybody
Yeah.
who's here
Go on.
trying to say.
Look, I don't think that Jesus is necessarily. Look, from an Islamic point of view.
We're not talking about Islam. We're talking about what the New Testament
I'll
says.
come back to it, I promise.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're
I'll
not
do what
talking.
you did
No,
earlier.
hold on one second. Hold on one second. We're not talking. You asked me a question. I've shown you the verse.
It doesn't answer the point.
No. So you're not just thinking. You think rationally. What goes into the mouth? Consumables.
What comes out of the mouth?
Words, thoughts, ideas. But what does Jesus?
So food won't make you say horrible things.
One second.
what it's saying?
Look what it says. Look, I'll tell you what it says. What he's saying is that it isn't eating pork that makes you unclean. It isn't drinking alcohol that makes you unclean. What makes you unclean is speaking
is the effect of that.
bigotry against Christians and Jews, is speaking hatred against the kuffar, is calling for the enslavement of people in an Islamic caliphate. These are the things that make you unclean.
That's lie.
No, don't.
That's what Jesus said.
He's got to look. He's got to make his
sure,
points,
I'm
right? So
sure,
let him do his job.
But I need to ask him a question.
Wait.
All you're doing is
What?
separating your emotions from the argument.
No, 100%.
Yeah, that's all you're doing.
I do my best.
You're
not to do it.
you're using humour based on a da'i culture to mock the Christian faith.
No, not mocking.
So,
not mocking.
here-
Anyone who thinks I'm mocking, I apologise in
Yeah.
advance. No
Right.
problem at
So
all.
here's what I want
What
you
I'm
to.
saying to you. What I'm saying to you
No,
about
I want
this
you.
particular
Go
thing
on.
here, right?
Say it. Go
Right,
on.
this has come from Matthew 15, and it's
Chapter 11, verse 11. Verse 11.
Yeah. Okay. Jesus is clearly stating in this paragraph
Yes.
that
It's
what
not a
goes in
parable.
your mouth,
Statement.
what goes into your mouth
Doesn't make you.
doesn't make you say and do nasty things.
No, what it's
That's
saying.
what it's saying.
No, let's actually look at what he's saying, because what you've just said is completely wrong.
Okay, read it.
It says, hear and understand, it is not what enters into the mouth that defiles the man. Now, think about the context in which he is saying this. He's saying this to Jews who have a concept in the Levitical code of foods that are clean and unclean.
Which he was a Jew himself.
Exactly, right? And he's saying that those foods don't make you defiled. But what does make you defiled is the hatred that you spew from your mouth. The kind
agree.
of bigoted stuff that we hear from the da'i, who attack
I don't know these
Christians, want to reduce them to make them into dhimmis, want to have slaves, want to marry children. These, Ali Dawah defended marrying a child, said he would marry his own child even though she was under the legal age. He would say she was ready. We can do a back flack, you can see it on our clip, we've got him on camera.
You asked me, would I allow my daughter to get married at 9? I'm saying the analogy is wrong, because our teachers teach us the woman has to be sexually, mentally and physically ready. That means if my daughter, if my daughter wants to menstruation,
hold on.
let me finish. If my daughter reached the age of menstruation at 9 years old, I would say you are ready. You are ready to get married.
Got him on camera. Got him on
let's talk
camera.
about the subject.
But my point to you is, right, is that Jesus.
Conversation is good enough for you again.
My point to you
He
is.
left us a minute ago. He's made lots of points.
Two
since then.
microphones. So my point to you is, if Jesus is saying that consumables that don't go into your mouth don't defile you, he has made a statement that declares all food clean.
I don't agree.
Okay, can I
Well,
say
you're just
something?
arguing with a
You
text.
have provided. Sorry, 1 second.
Can I say something about
You have
this?
provided your reasoning to why you accept it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I accept that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it. But I accept that is what you're taking
There's
from
a
it.
question. There's
Yeah.
a question. Jesus never had pork. Never.
But this
That's
is-
right.
And
You're
they
right.
still didn't pay.
I'm happy to say Jesus
just
never ate
understand.
pork.
Why can't you just follow
But
Jesus, not
saying that
pork?
all food, right? Saying that all Jesus drank alcohol.
No, but
Full stop.
he ate pork.
He drank alcohol. So why don't you be like Jesus?
Well,
So like, do you see how that argument doesn't work?
You eat pork.
Jesus
You eat
drank
pork.
wine, bro.
Where does it
Be
say
like
that?
Jesus.
Where does it
But
say
you
that?
eat
Is that the Last Supper?
Yeah, I'll show you. Do you want me to show you?
Because I know he was at a wedding party and he turned wine to.
He turned water into wine. Exactly.
That's what
So
they say.
Jesus
But-
drank
but-
wine.
But I know there is also a difference of opinion
I'm
that
just-
wine could also be non-alcoholic.
I'm just
back in the
what
day.
I'm trying to point out to you, bro, is that the silly Dai argument that you've probably heard, that, you know, we're more like Jesus than the Christians,
Why about
right?
Dai?
1 second, right, is a silly argument because Jesus drank alcohol. Muslims don't. I'm talking to you. I'm ignoring him. Jesus drank alcohol. Muslims don't drink alcohol. Jesus kept a Sabbath. Muslims don't keep a Sabbath. Jesus prayed facing Jerusalem. Muslims don't pray facing Jerusalem. Jesus prayed standing up. Muslims don't pray standing up. Again and again and again and again and again, there's lots of ways that Muslims aren't like Jesus. Pointing to ways in which Christians aren't like Jesus is a really bad argument. It works both ways. That's what I'm pointing out to you.
I would argue that we do pray standing up as well.
Jesus said, "Our Father in the
You have to, otherwise it's not
Yeah,
accepted.
Jesus called God his Father. Muslims don't call God his Father. So again and again and again, Muslims are not like Jesus. But Christians are like Jesus.
No, but are
What's
you-
your name, bro?
are you a Muslim?
What's your name? Mike. Nice to meet you, Mike. I appreciate our conversation. I just want to show that Jesus drank wine, right? So Jesus had no problem with alcohol.
Also, he eat pork.
Yeah. No,
he's
Jesus
already
didn't.
said that he
Jesus
never ate.
didn't eat pork. But he didn't eat pork. Let's be clear. He didn't eat pork because he thought it was unclean. He didn't eat pork because he just didn't want to eat pork.
really?
Because it was part of his custom and his culture, and because he had to fulfill the law. And he fulfilled the law by keeping the law so that a holy God might meet a faithful Israel.
Can we see that?
Yeah. So
Sure, right?
let me just show you where Jesus drank alcohol, just to show that Muslims are not like Jesus. Yeah.
You really have a bigotry against Muslims.
No, no, I
You
don't.
should preach,
No, I really
you
don't.
should
You see,
preach
that's
love.
just another
You should-
Dai lie.
You should preach.
That's just
some
another
peace.
Dai lie.
Because you are so pissed.
No, that's
and
just
angry.
another
I
Dai
don't
lie.
understand
No, that's just another Dai
why. Why are you
lie.
so angry with
That's just another Dai
They
lie.
piss you off.
That's just another Dai lie.
Look, we have to be fair.
Just
He's not
another
showed-
Dai
he's not
lie.
showed any anger.
I'm not-
Even your Muslim
every
brother is
statement-
correcting you.
Every statement he says.
Every Muslim, even your Muslim brother is correcting you.
But, it's
Is-
not, but the statements he makes
How
not
can you-
necessarily for us.
Yeah.
No, he's.
Yeah.
I
So-
don't know if he's speaking to the
so-
camera,
Exactly.
But I can hear
So-
some bigotry.
You can't accept.
No,
that.
no, no,
Look,
no,
look, we
no,
chose
you
to
can't.
stand here. We can walk
No, you can't. All you've done there is use an ad
Angry.
hominem argument.
Angry person.
All that
I don't
you've
know
done,
why.
again, just
He's so
lies.
angry.
These are just
Every
lies.
time you criticize somebody.
And this is one
he's
of the
not ready.
reasons. Anyway, I'm going to talk to you, Michael. I'm done with this guy. He's
No,
just
because you
like.
remind him of his
So
guilt.
so
He
my
doesn't wanna
point
hear
to
it.
you is, bro. My
Really?
point to you is, bro.
Bring somebody from the DIE and talk to them, and
What time are we
you
on?
can hear that.
Okay, it's just breath.
I've got to go soon. So
Oh, did you need to know the time?
No, I saw it. Sorry. Now the point is, when Muslims are defeated in the argument, they go to ad hominem. They go to wild accusations. You need to run to the free gift that Christ has given to you through his sacrifice on the cross, which is an imitation, not an imitation, but the completion of the sacrifice in the temple, which was foreshadowed by the sacrifice of Abraham to Isaac. And that's the continuity.
If that's a continuity, last point.
Yeah.
No,
Last
I really
point.
wanted to go back onto the ransom, but you got to go. I got to pray.
Right.
So the last point of that, if it was like something that was being told to us that was going to happen later,
Yeah.
so is Islam not right that Jesus wasn't dead then?
Yeah, Islam is completely wrong in saying that Jesus didn't die on the cross.
But
And this is the last
Ismail
point. This is the last point.
Isaac, sorry.
Right. So when the point that
Just
he
like he said,
Right,
I'll be in the
shall
belly
I,
of the
shall
whale
I,
like Jonah.
shall I address that? Because again, Dai lies, bro. You've just been
It's not,
manipulated.
it's
No, they are. And I'm going to show it
It
to you.
can't be a Dai lie.
It
If
is a
you
Dai
said
lie.
yourself.
Shall I explain?
that Isaac
Shall
didn't
I explain?
He was replaced.
Shall I explain?
Yeah.
Because you've obviously forgotten, sincerely, you've obviously forgotten what I said right at the beginning, and I said it, it's recorded on camera. What I said was, that Abraham represents the judgment of God,
Yeah.
Isaac represents humanity,
Yeah.
and the lamb represents Christ. Did the lamb
did
die?
say that, I'll give you
Did
that.
the lamb die?
Yes.
There you go. So it corresponds.
Okay.
So that is what is happening with Abraham, Isaac, and the lamb. The lamb represents Christ,
But how do
as
you
all
come to
the animal
conclusion
sacrifices do.
that Isaac represents
Humanity. Right, because of the teaching of the church. The teaching.
Did God reveal in any way that he wanted to kill everyone and then swapped everyone with Jesus?
Yeah, so we know that the scriptures say in the book of Romans that the wages of sin is death. We know, as it says in scripture, that everyone has sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. I've sinned, you've sinned, everyone listening to this conversation has sinned. So therefore, because we were meant to offer our lives to God and failed to do so, what is required is a life. Our lives. But human beings are incapable of giving their lives truly to God. We always sully it, we always mess it up, we always undignify it. So we can't offer ourselves as the sacrifice that we should be. So Christ himself is that sacrifice. And his sacrifice pays the ransom, that's the analogy, that we owe. And he conquers death and he conquers sin. And those that are baptized into him receive that blessing from Christ, from his crucifixion. Okay? Michael, it was really lovely talking
was a
to you.
good conversation.
It really was, and I really do
I wish I
appreciate
was
it.
there for the beginning of it.
No, don't worry.
To have had the ransom.
Don't worry. Yeah. Bro, I want to offer you a gift. I give everybody a gift. Now, I'm assuming you've probably got a Bible, or have you? You have a Bible. Great, I'm not giving you a
Very
Bible.
dusty these days.
Well, what I want to encourage you, bro, I want to encourage you to pick up that Bible and start reading it again, and maybe think that some of the things that the Da'i is saying about the Bible might not be true. And as an example of that, I want to give you this. This is my gift to you. You read it in 2 minutes over a coffee.
I'm a little bit disappointed there's no pictures in here though.
I know. I try to give out good
I'm a
leaflets.
man of simple views.
Right.
A couple of good pictures.
Yeah, yeah. I had a joke, but I've filtered heavily. But my point to you is, bro, you're going to read in that leaflet an example of a Da'i lie and the Christian answer. Okay. And I want you to remember, everything that the Muslims say to you about Christianity is a lie. Everything. Absolutely everything they say. And I'm willing to prove it. I'm willing to prove it. Everything.
I want to walk away.
All right.
Michael, he's
God bless you, Mike.
Thank you. Good
You
luck.
look after yourself.
His anger.
And if you, bro,
Don't get emotional.
Michael, when you pick up that Bible, write down your toughest questions. Your toughest questions, come back and talk to me. All right, God bless you, bro. Okay. JC. Yeah, let's do a wrap up. So, bro, we challenged the Da'i in the corner about a self-contradiction in the Quran. The Quran says that Allah provided a ransom sacrifice to save the son Ishmael. Is how Muslims understand it. How does Allah ransom something to himself? A ransom, by definition, is a transaction between party A and party B. Now, it simply demonstrates that the Quran, has a contradiction inside of it. And the reason why it has that contradiction is because Muhammad borrowed a story from the Jews that he didn't understand. The Jews have that story in their Old Testament because God was always going to establish that sacrifice is a ransom for humanity. And he showed that with Abraham, he showed that in the first temple and their sacrifices, and both of these things point to the ultimate sacrifice, Christ's sacrifice, which is a ransom of the Son offered to the Father for humanity, for the debt that we owe him for our lives. So in the Christian faith, Abraham's sacrifice makes sense. It leads naturally to the sacrifice of the first temple, which leads naturally and rightly to the sacrifice of Jesus. but in the Quran that they just called pagan, you have the same concept.
We don't say in the Arabic.
Allah sacrificed a ransom for Ishmael that he just called pagan. That he just called pagan. So, according to these two Muslims, Allah is a pagan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the illogical contradiction is that Allah is offering a sacrifice ransom to himself, which makes no sense at all. No sense at all. Ladies and gentlemen, the Quran says that if I can find a contradiction in the Quran, it's not from Allah. And I've just found a contradiction in the Quran. By contrast, ladies and gentlemen, by contrast, we Christians don't have that contradiction in our faith. Muslims come to this corner every week attacking the Christian faith. And so we are allowed. It is legitimate for us also to criticize Islam. I invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to pick up a Bible and to read it for yourselves, apart from the lies that the Dai say, apart from the lies of the secular media. Read it for yourselves and speak to a knowledgeable Christian about it. Good night and God bless. You just called your own God a pagan. Thank you very much. You said it. You said it. You said it. You said sacrifice was pagan. So Allah from you is a pagan because Allah provided a sacrifice to himself, which is a contradiction.